Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our pre-meeting. It is 5:15. Just as a reminder to please put your phones on mute or vibrate or off. That'd be great as we go into some discussion. The first item on our agenda is the new town hall update. Mr. Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we have folks here from Edifice team to talk about update from direction. Previously was, if you recall, we had looked at a location on the other side of the street, and the board direction was to look at a location right here behind this existing town hall and what we can do. So I think what you'll see tonight is a presentation from Mike Callisto, and he may bring up some other team members. And I know there were some questions about maybe some previous development, who built this building, DPK, and because we've had some issues with those. So before they come up, maybe I can just hit that real quick if that's okay.
That'd be great, thank you.
Because we've had some issues with the flooring and the rotunda over there in the DPK building. So the existing town hall we're in now, 1996, was actually, the architects was TBA2 Architects, and the builder was Godfrey Construction. That was 96. Town Center was 2010. The architect was Nomore Wright Creech, which that firm has split. Rogers Builders was the actual builders for Town Center. The parking deck, 2010. The design architect for that was Walker Engineering. Metromont. The skin of that parking deck was actually, just the surfacing on the parking deck was Nomore Wright Creech, and then the builder was Rogers Builders. The rec center in 2018, the designer was Lawrence Group, and the builder was Rogers Builders. And I'll turn it over to Edifice, who is, if we move forward with the town hall, it would be the builder.
Great. Come on up, please. How are you all this evening? Woo, it's doing its own thing.
Here we go, we're done.
All right. Whoa, we went through the whole thing. That was fast.
How many IT people do we hire? We may need more.
There we go.
Back way, I guess.
So how is everybody today?
Right?
Just running this book?
That'll work. Yes.
Apologize for the rough start. Thank you all for allowing us to be here this evening. Mayor, Chair, Council, we're excited to share with you an update on the town hall process that we've been working through. Got a really brief agenda for you. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So we're going to just do a little refresher. It's been a little while since we were in front of you, so we're going to talk about the project parameters from before. Mike's going to speak to that a little bit. We're going to remind you of that initial design concept that Anthony spoke of just a moment ago. We're going to share with you some new options that we've studied on the site behind here, and then, of course, we're going to talk about what the cost implications of those things are.
All right, great. Thank you, Brent. All right, so the team it's Edifice and Creech, and last year? Maybe about April or so, the town put out an RFQ, and the RFQ was for design build services. So if you remember, a long time ago, the old format was design bid build. That was hire a design team, have them finish the plans, and then you go out and bid, lump sum hard bid. A few years later, the state adopted CM at risk as a procurement method, and I think the town has used that several times before. Your rec center, for sure, I believe. And then a few years later, design build became a viable format for state procurement. So you as a town decided to use the design build format, and that's how our team was selected. So just a little bit of history there. And the process is you contract with Edifice, and Edifice contracts with our design partners for the project. So is there any questions about that? Okay. And first of all, thank you for having us back. We were given some assignments today, and we hope we give you some options to look at, some pricing, and I don't think you're going to figure everything all out tonight. That'd be great if you could, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I don't expect that to, and I don't think any of us expect that to. So first of all, I'm Mike Carlisto, project executive with Edifice. Tim Bender's here in the audience with Edifice as well. You've met Brent Green, and Natalie Stenger is here as well from Creech. So we're going to present to you tonight these options. And again, stop us if you've got questions as we go through this. We want this to be interactive as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. So we'll start with the project parameters, and I'll just use this as a reminder for most of you all. When we, some of this will seem familiar. We had this as part of our initial public charrette information gathering. So, you know, originally we were talking about a 3-story facility, around 36,000 square feet, and you can see there where it says initial town hall site over there adjacent to the town center. That was going to house administration, finance, HR, effectively a lot of the departments that serve the administrative component, but it was going to still allow for spaces that are currently occupied on the 3rd floor of the town center to remain town spaces. So it was going to free up some space in the town center moving over, but that was the initial project, was to build on that site. And then you all purchase a new parcel over behind the existing town hall. And that offers some different opportunities. And so I believe you asked us to look at what those things can yield. And part of the changes were, instead of looking at a solution where some of the departments were left on the 3rd floor of the town center, perhaps if we were going to look at this opportunity, we should get everyone under one roof. So that was one parameter that changed in this new scenario. But really was, you know, let's do a few test fits. Let's figure out what the potential yield is for those sites and look at advantages and disadvantages of those. Okay. So the 2 facilities that you're currently in, obviously this facility that we've just spoke of, around 8,000 square feet, and then the 3rd floor of Town Center across the street, around 18,289. You can see that both of those together yield around 26,290 square feet. And anytime we do these, we always ask ourselves, how do these facilities that we're planning compare to peers? And this is a comparison of some very local examples, some of which we've worked on. And really, if you utilize that square footage per population metric, you can see Davidson, Pineville, Cornelius, all of those kind of in this area, that the town of Huntersville does show up as the lowest if you use the square footage per population. And again, I think whether or not these spaces have community rooms, there's lots of different factors involved in this analysis, but I think what it does say in summary is that your town center and your town hall is undersized when you compare it to your peers and their facilities. So the initial town hall design, and I won't spend too much time on this because we've talked about this before, but it was a 3-story building, and if you'll recall, the 3rd floor was shelled, which means that its perimeter and infrastructure was built, but it was to be upfit at a future time for a specific use. So 2 fully upfit floors. It was held back from the corner and was 3 stories in like fashion with the town center building. That was the previous design, and now we're excited to share with you the new town hall options that we've prepared. So this is weird because usually architects do things in 3s, but we actually have 4 for you this evening because there was one that we just couldn't pass up on. So we're going to look at 4 different things. These slides are all going to be formatted the same way. You're going to get a plan image, you're going to get some description, and then the program is going to be off to the side. So we're going to look at an addition to the existing building, so connected to this building. We're going to look at a new building where you would demolish this building. We're going to look at a new building where you would actually sell this parcel and sort of get off the corner altogether. And then we're going to look at option 4, which we're calling a town hall annex, which is actually sort of a combination of a couple of these options, if you will. Okay? So here's option one. And we're calling this the, again, the sort of all under one roof scenario. So you can see number one is the existing town hall that we're in here. You can see there is an addition planned that directly connects to this building. That'll be a 3-story addition. For those of you familiar with this building, there are sort of hallways that flank both sides of this room. They just carry straight on back, and you're right into the other facility. It does maintain the corner presence that you occupy on sort of the main intersection in downtown. It does reutilize the square footage in this facility, which has good bones, and we feel like would have some positive attributes. It does keep everyone under one roof, which I think, is certainly a positive when you look at that versus a campus strategy. We did in this option look at sort of terminating the throughway parking on Huntersville Concord and creating a small civic green there in number 3 as a space that could serve as respite for this type of development right off the corner. So you can see there's parking associated with that, and the parking can take a number of different configurations. You'll notice that we have an A and a B scenario there. So there's surface parking, which would be around 135 spaces. But if you all decided that you wanted more density than that, you could actually construct a parking deck where you see that dashed line in number 4, and that would yield around 330 spaces at a 4-story structure. So on each one of these options, you're going to see surface parking, and then if it's available, an option to add structured parking. Yes, sir.
So in other words, we're gaining 10,000 extra square footage on this new location. We're going to 4650, when the original was 36.
Can you go back one slide, please? Whoops. So if you look in the bottom right-hand corner, we're saying this building is 8,025. We're saying the 3rd floor of the town center was 18.3, and that's a rounded number. And then we're saying the new initial town hall there at 36.2 for a total of 50.
56, right.
I glossed over that on the previous slide, forgive me. Okay, so we were discussing sort of option one as we were talking about the opportunities for structured parking, and that's just a footprint study in lieu of what the 2 rows of parking that are shown on surface can serve. Another important aspect of this, and it's talked about, is the opportunity to connect your greenway. You can see that white arrow as the greenway kind of comes across the street from this facility. We would love to find a way as a design tool to allow that to connect through the building, around the building, across the site, and then gain access to Veterans Park. And that's another positive aspect of this is, as we understand it, Veterans Park can have some events that would benefit from some additional adjacent parking. And so perhaps that usage there and access to Maxwell would be a benefit. Okay?
Commissioner Kidwell?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and I apologize for the interruption. Where you put the civic green space, how many parking spaces would that equal to if we forego that?
I want to say it was 20.
20-something, that's good enough for me, thanks.
It was less than 30. And I think you'll see in other options we have shown, that can obviously stay in place too if we wanted to completely max out our parking capacity. Okay? All right, so then option 2, which is to say we're going to build a building behind this building, and it would be done in a way so that it's actually can be built while this one is still operational, and then this building would be demolished. So again, think immediately behind, if you will, sort of on the parking lot site for the old auto parts store. You can see then what we're saying is the civic green that we just talked about on the side becomes your foreground, which is not atypical for a civic green space fronting a town hall. This one also gives you the option to do the turn lane, which I know has been a topic of interest across a few different platforms. You can see that parking yield is a pretty clean rectangle. If you did the garage, the structure parking is 475 spaces. If you did this surface parking is around 125. But again, just for purely opportunities and challenges, you've got the space for the turn lane. Yes, everyone is under one roof. This is a 4-story solution versus the others that we're showing that are 3. And the compact nature of this footprint and the requirement for square footage is what drove that. 4 stories is the maximum allowable in the town planning ordinance. And then, of course, the building still fronts Huntersville Concord Road, even though it's sort of across that civic lawn that we just described. That is both an opportunity and a challenge because you've removed your facade from the street, so somewhat of your identity is changed by that. We just talked about the need for a 4-story building. Some folks may see that as a negative, but again, it is certainly within the planning ordinance. And I think something that we could work on as a team is, this one just kind of has a lot of asphalt and parking lot that front the main street. We can figure out a way to mitigate that and screen that in ways that would make that more appropriate. Okay, so option 3 is completely abandoning this parcel here. And so you would build behind, and it would actually build on both of the parcels behind here, okay? And the end goal would be that you could sell this parcel. So the new building here is that 3 stories, back to that 500 square feet, that same size we've been describing. We do have a small civic green on the north side, as you'll see there in number 4. And of course, the parking is less on this option because we're dealing with less land. So the parking yield there on a surface level is 80, and the deck is still around 330 spaces. You know, you would certainly have some offsetting costs because I would assume ultimately this property would be sold. You'd be kind of giving back some of your highest and best tax shield property to a potential, user that you would generate revenue from. It could help generate activity, on the corner here. And again, everyone's still under one roof, but you will also lose control of this corner. So from a development standpoint, I shouldn't say lose control, it won't be a civic function. And so you'll have to be careful about what development allows to be happening here. And this one does have the fewest parking spaces available of all the options. Okay, and then we're going to sort of culminate with option 4, which, spoiler alert, sort of was one of our favorites. And this is the what we would call the annex option. So you're keeping this building, and you're building a new building, and instead of it being attached, like we looked at in the first option, it's actually detached and sits off down on the other side of the site. And that allows us to increase this really underutilized but quite nice outdoor space that's behind this building and sort of use that as captured space between the 2 facilities to create what is the civic green in this option. So you'll see this is at 3-story, 46.5 to account for the square footage in this building to get us to the 54,000 that we've talked about in the other options. You've looked at parking similar to this in these other options. In this one, we did carry all the way back out to Huntersville Concord Road. So this one kind of maximizes that opportunity. This one checks a lot of boxes. It reuses this building. It keeps your presence on the corner. The construction phasing is really easy. Everything happens down there. There's really enough room between the buildings to work. That mid-block green space is probably more effective than it being in front of the building or beside the building on Huntersville Concourse. We felt very positive about that. And the first question we got was, well, then what are you doing with this facility in that instance? And we think it could make a wonderful community center, parks and rec, perhaps functionality, program space. So the use of this space and the support areas around it in this 8,000 square feet could really become part of the offset to the program and serve the citizens well. The town staff might not be all under one roof, but again, we're talking about a campus here, and depending on what functions is up here, the vast majority of them actually would be. And this is 4A. And I think the only difference between 4A and 4B is, as I mentioned, 4A was a 3-story solution to get us to the 54. The question was asked, well, what is our maximum development potential? So you could actually build a 4th floor on this same option. And, this is going to be the most expensive option. It has the most square footage. But in terms of a maximum capacity, this would get you, to that larger square footage. So 4A and 4B are the same except for one additional floor on the new town. And all staff. That's the difference too as well. And that 4B is that whatever staff would have been housed in this facility in 4A would certainly have space to be in that facility in 4B. Thank you. So that was our 4 options that we looked at, and hopefully that was informative. And now I'm going to pass the baton to Mike and let us talk about the cost estimates.
One question. In 4A and 4B, what are the parking spaces?
Will you go back for me, please, sir? So we had, if you do surface parking, 130, and if you did surface park, it was 130 on both. Is that right?
Yeah. In 4A and 4B at the same site plan.
Same site, just the one level.
One more floor. Yes. Commissioner Munger?
Sure. 4A, 4B, difference 3 floors versus 4 floors. Doing some rough math, 4A is 15,500 square feet per floor. 4B would be 13,250 square feet per floor. So it is a slightly different footprint.
The footprint could shrink,
Right, thanks.
or you could have one floor smaller, you could bring in the top floor of it.
Thank you.
At this time, do we have an architectural design rendition of the building that we can visually see?
No, sir, we were asked to sort of put this exhibit together pro bono and get to this point this evening, but we'll be happy to take that charge on should you all give it to us.
Any other questions before we move on to cost? Okay. Now the nitty-gritty.
Nitty-gritty. So these are projections of, and granted, we can put pricing together off minimal information, but we have a market right now that is absolutely insane. We are trying to predict these numbers to be accurate, but if you told me in 14 months what this market's going to do, I can't tell you that. But right now, we're looking at these costs on par with what we're seeing right now. Do we expect a slowdown of sorts in this area? I can't answer that, but here's our best projection of what these numbers are. Option one, which was renovating this existing building, and then a 3-story, 46,500 square foot new building attached, correct? Yep, so that's coming in at 24.5. Our option two, which was to demolish this building, create a green space out front at the corner. That's coming in a little bit more, a bigger building at 25.9. Option three, which was to sell at the front corner here. No demolition involved. That comes in a little bit cheaper without that demolition piece right there, about 25.5. And then the option four, which was our designer's favorite. Okay. So that again is renovating this building, correct? And then a new 3-story building. And then the renovation would be for administrative space. Option 4B would be for, I believe, a different community use of this building, and then adding the maximum amount of space for administration at the new 4-story building. So again, 24.5 for option 4A, 27.9 for option 4B. And we did do a comparison back to what we had presented and designed and priced a few months back. In today's dollar, that 2-floor upfit and shell of the third would be about $16.6 million. And if we filled that whole building with an upfit, it would be about $19.4 million. Now granted, the dollar per square foot is higher because that building's smaller and more compact. You're fitting a lot more stuff into a smaller space. So economies of scale are going to affect that square footage. But you can see the overall differences from the old design scheme and plan to these 5 new projections.
So just to be clear, the 19464 is across the street at Town Center, but it's the full building completely built out, no shell.
Exactly. No shell space.
Okay. Commissioner Kidwell.
And that would house everybody?
Across the street at that?
Yeah,
square
at the
footage?
full build-out?
I don't think so.
Okay, just to be clear.
No, that would be the full build-out plus the top floor of Town Center. Yeah, okay. Any questions right now for these folks while we have them? Commissioner Munger.
Sorry, I just want to follow up on that particular discussion. We're saying the old build-out, if we built out all 3 floors plus, or just the 3 floors, we would end up with 46,200 square feet? Okay, 36 is including the 3rd floor. And that would not be enough to house all of our staff right now.
Right now it would, but not, there wouldn't be any.
Out
Not
of 50
future
you build
growth.
out.
All All right, so 10, 15, 20 years from now, we'd we need more space. All right, thank you.
Commissioner Phillips?
And would these house everybody for the future too? Like when we hit 100,000 residents, is this town hall still going to work? Any of these options on this screen?
I mean, the one that's going to take you to, you know, what I would say, we're long gone, I'll be definitely dead. Maybe everybody at this dais. There's option B, and what 4B is, obviously it's the highest number, but that is 4 stories. And then that leaves this building intact for maybe a community room building, whatever you want to call it, is 4B. But that is 4 stories, that is 62,000 square feet with this 8,000, that includes the 8,000 of this building for community space. It will definitely house everyone under one roof. And yes, it will house enough people till I'm gone, for sure.
Commissioner Munger?
So as long as we're going down hypotheticals, we theoretically build the 36,000 square feet building. We have the 3rd floor of the DPK building. DPK eventually leaves. How much square foot do we have if we have both buildings?
So if you, and I don't have it in front of me, but each floor over there, I'm gonna do a round number, was roughly 18,000 square feet on those floors. So assuming you finished off this 2nd floor and took it all the way through, we're just gonna use round numbers because it depends on the, you know, mechanical rooms and different things like that, elevators, et cetera. But 18,000 per floor, so another 36,000 square feet roughly, because we're already on the 3rd floor.
But that is not in this 36,000 number. So 18, 18, 18, 54 plus 36, we'd have 90,000 square feet roughly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the one thing I would say on that is, if you recall, the lease on that building is up in 2040. There was 3 5-year intervals that they could ask for renewal, which at the price that is locked in, I'd be shocked if they didn't.
Commissioner Kidwell?
Town manager just answered my
Okay.
question.
Any other questions? First blushes? Commissioner Phillips?
I would honestly like, if we can, just go ahead and, if there are any on these that none of us like, we just need to go ahead and kick them off, not waste anybody's time. I don't like option 3 at all, because the whole thing about downtown has been owning the corners, master of our own destiny. I'm not selling this. So it defeats the purpose of what we're trying to achieve to even like talk about selling this. So I'd just like to take option 3 off the table completely, if the other board members are okay with that.
Commissioner Munger?
Sure, sorry, I'm overly verbal on this one. I'm in agreement. Option 3 doesn't make sense to me. Option 2 doesn't make sense to me. If you're looking at it, to me, 4A or 4B, and I lean 4B, but that's a lot of money, so I don't care for 2 or 3, my opinion.
Commissioner Boone?
Commissioner Munger, I'll agree with you on 2 and 3. I don't think they're going to fit for what the town needs. And Commissioner Phillips, I'll also agree with your assessment of 2. So I think that we've eliminated part of it right there.
Well, I do have to say, while it's maybe the most expensive for 4B, for long-term, for growth of our community, if we're really going to create a government center that can grow past us all, then B looks like it would make the most sense. The other thing that I find interesting about A or B is that if we continue to grow, there's always the opportunity for future leaders to say, you know what, the small annex of the original town hall could be taken down and you could build again here if you needed to. So I don't necessarily think you'd ever have to come off this corner. So I think it's interesting. It certainly is interesting. Would it be possible for the board to get this presentation sent to them so that you all have it?
Bobby will email it to you tonight, tomorrow.
Would that be helpful to everyone? Yes. Okay. Thank you so very much. Commissioner Kidwell, you got a question, comment?
Just a comment. Just so I'm clear, the majority of this board is saying they are looking at the option for a new town hall on this plot of land here?
I don't know necessarily. Ms. First blush, I think we need to sit back and really digest the information. But for the four options, if we're going to be here,
And I say majority because I'm not for any option.
fair enough.
That hasn't changed since I was elected 7 months ago, 8 months ago.
I would say let the board take this presentation and review it, and then we'll come back and have some conversation around it. Commissioner Phillips?
Can we at least say that it's either gonna be here or there and call it a day on that so that we can get the downtown stuff going back the way it needs to go?
That is completely up to our board.
I would agree with that. I think it's going to be this corner or that corner, and we can sort that out later, but I think a majority, even with one member absent, in my opinion, agrees with that.
Agrees with what? Making a decision?
This corner or that corner?
Making a decision tonight? Okay. So I'd like to open it up. Commissioner Boone? Oh,
Well, this is scheduled for a pre-meeting, so as far as you could take a straw vote.
yes. Yes, this is true.
Well, and what I'm trying to do is, okay, let's just say it's gonna be A or B. I'm not saying let's pick a plan tonight and run with it, that, God, no. But at least A or B, we're not talking about moving to Burkdale, moving to Mount Holly, whatever. We're just, we're done. So that way, the downtown portions of whatever, that's what we can start focusing on again. And that's what I'm trying to get out, is just straw poll to
Right.
get it.
Mr. Roberts?
I'm all for that, but I'll just give you a good example of, I don't want to give false hope. So we go and this board says, let's put it on this corner. What did last board do? Move forward with that. So we go and say, put it here on this corner. That's great. We can plan and downtown steering committee do their thing. That doesn't mean it's going to get built here until somebody pulls the trigger. So we start doing all these plans and everybody gets excited. It's going here. It ain't worth the piece of paper it's written on. So I just want to let everybody know a future board can move this thing around. So we got to think about that.
Well, and I would say this, since this is the first time we've seen it, you may want to just take a step and review.
Mayor, I was going to make that suggestion. This is our first time that we're reviewing these options. And I know what I like, and I'm in agreement with most of my fellow commissioners, but I think we should just come back the next meeting and articulate where we want to go so we know for sure. And then also talk to some of our constituents out there to see what their opinion is too.
I certainly would agree with that. I think this, since it's the first time we're all seeing it, it would make sense to let the citizens also let us know what they like and don't like about what's just been presented. Are we good with that? So at the first meeting in September, we just need to make sure that's on the agenda. Thank you all very much. Greatly appreciate all the work that you've done. These are some great options.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Williams, you are up. The American Rescue Plan Act update. You got 10, but hopefully you'll have some good information for us.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This is, I guess, a much quicker update than the last time you saw me talking about the American Rescue Plan. One of the things we mentioned with those previous updates were that guidance and things kept changing, and we were kind of waiting for them to change again. And so we've been talking with the state for, I would say, probably the last 2 to 3 months as we've work through with the NC Pandemic Recovery Office how we were going to be treated. And so you may recall with our dollars we got from Treasury, we were able to take those as revenue replacement, which gave us a lot of flexibility in how we chose to use them. The state money we're receiving, we thought were going to be under kind of the standard ARPA rules, but the funds we're getting from the state are coming through their revenue replacement, which means we're getting that same level of flexibility from the state, and we are going to be a beneficiary, which means we're not subject to uniform guidance. I think there's probably still some things we'll do through procurement to be as close to UG as we can, just in case. Again, things keep changing, and that's what we found thus far. But we could use funds for government services, we could use funds for capital, still have the same requirements to get everything allocated by December 31st, 2024, and spent by December 31st, 2026. And just kind of talking amongst Jackie, I know she's probably jumping, as you guys got your budgets tonight, jump in with some suggestions on how we might spend these funds. But one thing we've looked at is kind of using it the same way we have with the Treasury dollars, with paying for traditional salaries, benefits, and then freeing that money up. That way we're spending it quickly by the deadline, and then we have it available for capital or whatever else. But ultimately, that's something for the board to consider. We just wanted to, since this is fresh, it's new, you knew the money was coming. We don't officially have it yet, but we at least have our process in place. We're still waiting for a few items from the state with regards to our reporting and some of those expectations, but the burden that we will face is a lot different as a beneficiary of these funds. So just want to let everybody know that.
Really quick question, are we going to get that 12 million in one lump sum, or is it coming in trunks?
They are willing to give it to us in one lump sum. I think if we know how we're going to spend it, it makes it a whole lot easier for us to ask for it in that one lump sum.
Okay. Any questions? Commissioner Partee?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Williams, for your presentation and filling us in on the amount of money we're going to receive. I have been reading the articles out of our Southern City magazine, and it sees that other municipalities such as Wilson, North Carolina, Brevard, North Carolina, have already set up a plan as to how they're going to spend their ARPA funding. For instance, Wilson received $15.7 million, and they already outlined a plan on where that money is going to be directed towards. Have we set up, or do we have any idea, maybe I should ask the town manager, as to our plan and prioritize that plan? And is there like a timeline as to when we're going to institute and start spending this money?
Specific plans, we are taking the 4.8 and we're supplanting essentially with counting that money towards our general government services. And that frees up that 4.8 to spend. There are a number of large ticket items. You certainly just heard about one of those in the previous update if the board chooses to go that direction. But having that money available for capital, kind of thinking back to the meeting we had earlier this year, the board seemed to have a particular emphasis on capital projects and certain items. I know we've got a couple other big ones out there with the HFFA and some other things that may be coming before you guys. So this gives you some additional flexibility. And then just structurally, some of the communities that had to have those plans, they had to submit those plans as part of their request to get the funds. We got a lower level from Treasury, and we're a little more complicated with the pot we're getting from the Treasury directly and then the pot we're getting from the state. We thought we'd be getting more, and that would have put a different set of requirements on us.
Any other questions at this time? Okay, thank you.
We figure this is just the first of many, but we want to let you know that the 12 million, we finally gotten to the point where there's some resolution on how we're going to get it.
I guess my only other question is, Ms. Huffman, do you have any thoughts in regards to this new update?
I'm itching.
I thought you were.
So I want to plug the budget book. It looks like this, and it got put in your box this afternoon, and if it's not on the website now, it will be tomorrow. Related to the 4.8 million that we are supplanting, I view it like this. The 4.8 goes into fund balance. And once dollars become fund balance, we don't segregate where they came from. My parallel is casserole. Once you make a casserole, you can't get the eggs out of the casserole anymore. You can't get the sour cream out of the casserole. You can't specifically identify exactly where they came from. So page 134 of this document is our CIP that suggests there's over 200 million in projects that we're considering over the next 5-ish and more years. Page 211 is our 5-year financial forecast. If you ask me about the 4.8 million, what I would do is direct you to this page. When we balanced our FY23 budget, it says we'd use 7.6 million in fund balance to balance the budget on various capital projects. So I would argue the 4.8 is part of this casserole that became part of how we're spending almost 8 million in this year's budget. So Jackie, how'd you spend the 4.8? I spent it on capital projects that were funded in FY23. Jackie, what's your recommendation that we do with the 12 million Bobby just talked about? I have some serious concern that the state might later decide, you know what, we really wanted you to treat that as though it was subject to uniform guidance. If we treat the 12 million exactly the way we treated the 4.8 million and we comply with uniform guidance, if the state changes their mind, I don't think I have a copy of the agreement, but my understanding is the agreement leaves a little bit of, hey, if we ever, a little bit of flexibility. If they ever decide they want to come back and tell us we needed to comply, if we didn't comply, we're going to have to come up with 12 million to give it back. I don't want to give it back. So if I'll just comply in the beginning and I treat that as fund balance, then I got 12 million in fund balance available to use for a capital project or available to use for whatever purpose we need it for out of fund balance.
Some good information, thank you. Yes.
What she's probably going to say in one sentence is, if it was up to her, she would say, supplant the 12 million too. That's the
Absolutely.
short version.
That is absolutely our recommendation. Treat the 12 million supplant just the way we did the 4.8. Spend it in salaries for general government employees. Spend it. The 12 million plus the 4.8, we don't budget that much in salaries in 1 year. So do one of two things. Either use it for salaries and benefits in FY23. So at June 30, 23, our obligation to spend it for an allowable purpose is gone. Or we would have it done by the probably first quarter of FY24. That's how I do it.
But it allows you maximum flexibility. So you've met their requirements, and they can't really check. You've already got the money, spent it, and then ultimately you've put it in the fund balance to allow you maximum flexibility to do. As long as it falls in the government categories of things you can do, it allows you to do that. So,
And to Jackie's concern about the state changing their mind on the uniform guidance, our process is put into place with the salaries and benefits to follow what uniform guidance would say. So we're doing that. We're prepared to do that. We're prepared to document that if the state comes back and asks for it.
Okay, great. Thank you.